As you have just seen by the title of this video, Kim Woo-jin has shot 709 on a 720. That's not a typo or a mistype or some fake news, but at the recent national championships in Korea, Kim Woo-jin shot 709. So that's what I want to talk about today. But I also want to talk about not just the 709, but also I want to show you some specific parts of Kim Woo-jin's technique that I believe are instrumental in getting this 709. So that's going to be the kind of meat of the video. To start with though, I just want to go onto this World Archery article about this news post essentially. So nice picture, that's all standard. So there's a really nice article. But what I want to show you is the scorecard because the scorecard is pretty funny. I mean, it's 60, 58, 58, 60, 59, 60 for the first half. So that is a that is a pretty good first half. Despite shooting an 8 on the fifth end in the second half for a bad end of 57, only 354 for the second half. Despite shooting an 8, 709. So the last world record I think was 702, if I'm not mistaken, by Brady. And to be honest, 709 is just in a completely different league. I think from this scorecard, some people I saw said, oh, you know, the last dozen's 115. He's got a lot of room for improvement. And you'd kind of have to agree with that. I mean, looking at the scorecard, if you look at the actual dozens, when you look at the dozens there, it's 118, 118, 119. So, okay. And then that's actually a 9. It looks a little bit 80, but that's a 9 there. So that's 119, 120, and then 115 for the last dozen. So that's pretty incredible. Maybe even Kim Woo-jin was getting a little bit excited by that point, thinking, holy crap, this is going to be like a 713 or something. So yeah, this is absolutely incredible. And the other thing that I wanted to mention in this article, it mentions it here, the top 12 men in the competition all shot 690 or above. That's pretty funny. Third place was 696, Kubon Chan making a comeback maybe from Rio 2016, the Rio 2016 Olympic champion. And then the best women's score was shot by current Olympic champion Im Shi-yeon, 687. So we can safely assume the weather was quite good that day. Everyone is shooting pretty incredible scores. But now I want to go, yes, the score is incredible. The scorecard is just brilliant. I hope he's got this, maybe he can get this framed somewhere and put it at home. But I want to talk about some technique aspects. It wouldn't be an Online Archery Academy video without this. And I want to kind of mention something here and draw your attention to this unique aspect of Kim Woo-jin's draw. So if we just zoom in a little bit, I want to just pay your attention here to the angle. I'll move this out of the way. The angle of his long rod. So from this direction of the camera, it's slightly hard to see, but we'll look at some other angles in a second. But essentially, Kim Woo-jin's long rod is very much pointed to the left as he's looking at it. You know, if you're looking at the target, he's looking downrange. His long rod is very much angled left, so right in this picture. And I'll get into why that's important in a minute. But let's just watch in half speed. I'll put it on half speed. Let's just watch then the kind of subsequent draw, if you like. So the raise up here, and then opens the bow, and then you see the long rod. Watch the tip of the long rod here. As he opens the bow and draws, the long rod really kind of swings from left to right. So this is the key unique aspect that I want to kind of highlight today of Kim Woo-jin's technique. Is it going to be a 10? Oh, surprise. That was just a random clip, obviously, that I'd picked, but chances are it's going to be a 10. So the reason this is really important, this angle, and this is for a right-handed archer, this angling of the long rod to the left, it does many, many things. But in particular, it allows you to get a good connection on your draw side. So this is what I call the draw side connection. And I talk about this in my advanced recurve technique course. That's a good segue. I'll get into that later. But essentially, what you want to avoid at the set position is kinking your wrist and basically breaking the connection between your hook and your draw elbow. If you have a kind of broken connection there, let's for example say you're like this, you've got no connection between your hook and your elbow, and it's going to be very hard for you to lead with your elbow to draw up and then come into full draw. And you might be thinking, why is that a bad thing? Why is that, necessarily going to harm my shot if my wrist is a little bit kinked? Some people do it. For example, Kim Jae-juk, another great archer, he actually does this. He's one of the few that can start with a bent wrist, and then when he draws in, he still manages to get this draw elbow around and in a good line. He does that, but as with everything in archery, there's a lot of variation. And the reason I want to highlight, you can do it a different way, but I think this is a unique aspect of Kim Woo-jin's technique that basically makes his draw effort, his actual draw cycle, so much less effort and so much less energy he has to expend for every single draw, because A, he's got a great connection to his elbow, B, his scapula can then move around really nicely and easily, C, he's using a nice amount of rotation of the body to actually draw the bow, he's not just kind of muscling it with the arm, and then D, when he's actually shooting, he can make sure that the actual timing of the draw up and the speed of it is really, really fast. So over a round, when we're looking at, 72 arrows on a ranking round, over that period, he's going to actually save a lot more energy and maintain his fine control a lot better than other people. So I want to look at this from a different angle now. Let's look at it from this angle. So this is from the back, essentially behind the shooting line. And I think I'll put it on half speed again, so you can see a bit more easily. And we're going to zoom in so you can see a bit more easily. But I want you to pay attention to this position at the bottom here. So you can see the long rod angled left, like we mentioned before. And then also watch now the bow, the physical location of the bow. So I'm just going to scroll up a bit so that when he raises the bow you can still see it. And I'll zoom in a bit more. So the bow comes up. And now, did you spot that? So the bow here, as he's coming up, goes from right to left. And then now when he draws, because the long rod is angled left at this point, then when he draws, the long rod swings into view there and goes left to right. This is something that a lot of the archers that I coach, they kind of run into a little bit of a problem with, because it's hard to get your head around at first, but I'm not saying two contradicting things here. They actually work together. So when you're raising your bow, you want your actual physical location of the bow to be slightly right at your set position. So then when you raise up, you can go right to left. And what that does is it allows you, I'll exaggerate it, but it allows you to open your shoulder here and get a good alignment. If you imagine doing the other way around, if you're going left to right, you're going to come up and go this way, and you're closing down your shoulder. Bad bow shoulder alignment, not what you want. So having the physical location of the bow slightly right and then coming over to the left allows you essentially to kind of like open your chest and align your front shoulder, but at the same time having the long rod angled left so that when you come up and draw, then it tilts around, helps your draw side in order to get a good shot essentially, and basically helps you keep this connection, this straight line on the draw side, so that you don't end up kind of drawing in too close, you don't end up having any impingement or issues on this draw shoulder. And this overall kind of structure of the set position, the raising portion, is probably one of the most overlooked things when I look at kind of club level archers or even national level archers. They don't pay a lot of attention to where they start the shot. They think, okay, as long as I raise the bow the same each time, it doesn't matter too much. But if you think about this logically, if we now go to this video again, where you place your hands, I'll zoom in slightly, but if you imagine where you place your hands here, the draw hand and the bow hand, those two positions are the only two permanent contact points with the bow that you've got, and where you place them and where you move them is going to completely determine your whole shot cycle. So it's really important. Your bow positioning is really important because it determines your whole shot, and this is why it's really important, depending on your stance, depending on what you your bow weight as well, your mass weight. Really important to think critically about, do I want to rest the bow on my leg when I'm coming from the set position, or do I want to, for example, like Kim Woo-jin here, he goes from the foot and then lifts up to an intermediate position, just a slight tap on the leg here, and then lifts from that point. So there's a lot going on in this part of the shot, especially if you are an archer that goes from the bow off the foot, like I did as well. There's a lot going on. So it's really important to be aware of kind of how this all plays together with the motion of the draw and the raise that you're doing. Really plays a lot into your shot. This leads me on to a nice segue to my advanced archery technique course. So if you haven't checked this out already, I don't know what you're doing, but essentially I've got an advanced course and a beginner's course as well. But if you go to onlinearcheryacademy.com and click explore the courses, then you'll be taken to this page here. And this page is courses.onlinearcheryacademy.com. And essentially, the thing I want to mention here is, so I've got a beginner's course here and an advanced course. But the advanced course goes into all this detail that I'm doing today. This is just one section, one part of one section of the course. So I think there's over 5 hours of video tutorials on every single part of the technique, like I'm going through today, but going through step by step. And I'd definitely check this out if you haven't already. But what I'm going to do now is I want to show you a little section from the course specific to what we're talking about. So this is the video on the course talking about this bow positioning. And I just want to kind of scroll through a couple of key things. So this is what I'm demonstrating here. This is exactly the kinked wrist position that happens if you angle the long rod straight to the target. So you can see me demonstrating this here. With the long rod now, you can see the long rod is angled to the left. You can now see the position here between the wrist, and I'll zoom in a little bit. See the position, the line between the wrist and the elbow coming up here. This is the thing that's really important, because this line, having this straight, allows you to feel in your elbow that you're leading the shot. And then, if we zoom back out and we kind of compare, you'll see here, good connection with the draw side. Long rod is pointed to the left, and this is what I'm talking about with the hook and the elbow here, the straight line. And then, if we go to the next bit, there, see that difference, that transition. This is what a lot of archers do in the set position. They feel like they have to have the string close to the bow arm, and then they've basically ruined the angle of the long rod, like I mentioned, and essentially kink their wrist. And look here at my shoulder. I'm just going to zoom in, actually. Let's really zoom in. Look at my shoulder. I've not deliberately tried to do this when I was filming the course, but look at my shoulder position here once I've kinked the wrist in and brought it in, compared to, see that? So this was the position before. It's slightly blocked by the limb, but you can see here, nice and relaxed position. I'm just going to let it play through. Nice and relaxed position, and then watch when I kink my wrist. Watch the shoulder. See how that comes up, the shoulder. So this is the thing. It might seem really minor, but having the bow in the right position means that you don't have to manhandle yourself into this awkward starting place and then end up essentially, if you have your hand really close here, you have to kind of come here, this is up, you then raise up. Sorry, I hit the microphone. You then raise up, you can't come round because your shoulder's kind of pinching, the blade is not coming around properly, and this is really important. I think also on this video later on, there's something I want to show you. Yeah. This video from overhead just shows it perfectly. So in this video, it's a very slight angle of the long rod to the left. But look at this straight line between draw elbow, draw wrist, and then the hook. And the gap here, the green gap between the hand and the bow shoulder. I think a lot of archers get caught up because they want to get a good bow shoulder line. So they end up thinking, okay, I have to get this in line early. And then they end up bringing this hand close to the shoulder. But then they're kind of screwed for the rest of the shot. You've got no rotation. You've got nowhere to turn into because you've kind of done it all. And the only thing you can do from that position, if you've tried to do it all already and get this front shoulder in line, all you can do now is this. But you have there's no twisting you can do. You can't twist and use your torso and your core because there's nowhere to go unless you're mega mobile. But chances are you're not. So This is a good example of a nice distance from the shoulder here. Now, this was when I first started understanding this part of the technique. Now, if I was shooting again, I would aim for even more here. More of an angle with the long rod, more of a gap between the bow hand and the draw hand and the bow shoulder. And what we want to avoid, this is exactly the thing that I was saying we want to avoid. This is textbook wrong set position that is going to make your life so much harder than it needs to be. And I think it's pretty obvious. You can see why this is going to be difficult, because the long rod actually in this example pointed to the right of the target. So the draw hand is mega close in. The draw wrist is really kinked. This shoulder is going to be really difficult to come around. And overall, the whole shot is just going to be really tight and almost robotic in the way that you're going to feel like you have to come up and then you have to twist and then you can't do everything smoothly. Whereas let's go back to Mr. Wu Jin. Let's zoom out. Let's now, having talked about all of that, let's now look at his overall shot from a holistic point of view, just as the whole movement, and see what you can see. Smooth, opening, clean, everything together. All of that is impossible if you start in the wrong position. So this is the key aspect of Kim Woo Jin's technique that I wanted to mention today. And now I want to just play that through in normal speed so you can see it in real time and you can see about the timing and the energy saving of this that I was mentioning. Comes up and then up, draw, in. That amount of time, it looks so smooth. It looks almost slow sometimes. The way he's drawing, it looks so effortless that it kind of looks slow. But when you time it, and then you realize how quickly he's going from up and then drawing in, if you actually time it 2 to 3 seconds, and then you try and do it, you realize how quickly he's actually doing this, how much energy he's saving compared to someone who has a slower draw and is really kind of taking their time on each one. So this is the kind of key highlight that I wanted to mention. And as a little kind of bonus tip, if you like, or a kind of secret thing, I actually learnt this when I was getting these videos here. So this overhead, when I was working on my technique for the winter of this, I actually was watching Kim Woo Jin's technique and I learnt this from him. This is where I learnt the importance of the bow hand positioning that actually helped me get better technique, better alignment, better results as well when I worked on this in the winter of, I can't remember if it was 2016 or I think it was the winter of 2016, maybe 2017. But I worked on this for the whole winter, finally got my draw elbow around into a good alignment, went to Vegas in the flights division, won the flights division, shot a 296, I think it was, or a 297 one of the days. First half, 150 out of 150. And people were coming up to me at Vegas saying, how do you get your elbow so far around? How do you make your draw look so smooth? How do you make your release so snappy, but it looks really clean and effortless at the same time? And I didn't tell them at the time, obviously, that that watch Kim Woo Jin shoot and learn from him. But essentially, this whole kind of evolution of my technique came from watching Kim Woo Jin and learning the things that he did so well. And once I realized that, that's what I then put into my advanced recurve technique course, because that is what I wanted to teach everyone here watching, because I'm kind of sick and tired of seeing people start in the set position in the wrong place, not paying enough attention to whether they have the bow on the foot or the leg and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you haven't checked that out yet, definitely do. But today's video, I want to kind of highlight just his technique, his expertise, and how much he's kind of brought on the world of archery, because I feel like he does this in a really, really unique way. So hopefully that was a slightly different video than usual, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Congratulations to Kim Woo Jin, because that is just incredible. Let me know in the comments, I'd be fascinated to hear, let me know in the comments if you haven't played around with the bow position like this before. Do it, just maybe for some draw ups as well at home. And let me know your feelings. Let me know what you notice when you do a draw up with the position close, going from right to left with the long rod angle. I'd be fascinated to hear in the comments what you think of this and what you feel the difference, because I am sure that when you do this and when you have the long rod a little bit left, like I've been mentioning, you're going to feel so much more open in this draw shoulder. Honestly, it is a game changer. I actually had an AC joint injury. The AC joint is the little bony bit here on the shoulder. I had an AC joint injury while I was shooting because I shot a lot of arrows and did a lot of them wrong. I did a lot of them like this picture that I was showing you earlier that was wrong. Did a lot of them like that, which gave me an AC joint injury, inflammation in the joint, and then switching to that other way of drawing, so much better for my shoulder, so much more freedom to move, and really, really good. Final tip that I forgot to mention, that I just reminded myself of. When you're at your set position, you can use your string as a great reference guide to see if you're doing this correctly. It's hard to use the long rod angle because it's kind of hard to reference it against anything. But if you look at this example here, you can see from my right eye, my dominant eye, the string, if I draw a line between my right eye and the string, it's probably going to intersect somewhere on my bow hand here, somewhere around there. If we go to Mr. Wujin, if we go to here and zoom in, this is another top tip here, which I cover in the advanced technique course that I mention in it. And I think I've mentioned this in some other videos before as well. But look now at the string. From his right eye, if you draw a line from the right eye to the string, it's going to be landing probably around here on the side rod, probably on the collar of the side rod. Go and try that out and you will see how much angle we're talking about. How much angle. I think he's got 12-inch side rods as well. To start with, that's probably going to be too much. But as a bare minimum, if you're beginning at the set position and your string is to the left of your bow, don't do that. If that's where you're starting, start with it in line with your riser. As a bare minimum, I like to suggest people when they start with this to have the string lined up with the end of their biter button, so to the right of the riser. And for a lot of archers, depending on your stance, depending if you open stance, you have the bow on the leg or the foot, all these kind of things, a lot of archers do end up having the kind of reference of the string somewhere in the middle of their side rod. Or, if you want, you can go a little bit further up as well. But have a play around with this, see where you want to put it. And don't quote me on this, but I believe there is not a rule saying you can't have a mark on your side rod. So try this at your own risk. I think in a competition it's actually fine to have a reference. If you want to put a piece of tape on your side rod to get this consistent every time, little piece of white masking tape to be like, okay, this is my set position, check, done. Definitely do it in practice because there's nothing to lose. I mean, that's just a great training aid. I believe it's also fine in competition, but don't quote me on that. On that bombshell, it's time to end. Try that in competition and let me know how it goes, and I'll see you in the next video.